coach can be defined as a person who directs the effective acquisition of skills through direction, instruction, and training. They are also responsible for guiding individuals and groups to reach their goals in terms of performance and competition. In this programme, we'll be looking at a number of different aspects of being a coach, including what makes a good coach, how to organise an effective training session, the importance of communication skills, assessing strengths and weaknesses, and safe practice and child protection. The role of the coach has evolved over the years, and at professional level, many coaches have developed a brand or style that sets them apart from their contemporaries. This has led to some coaches becoming even more identifiable in their importance to a team or an individual. For example, Sir Alex Ferguson is widely renowned for his team's focus on attack play and the development of future Manchester United teams. This shows an excellent grasp of tactical and strategic awareness and vision for the future.
I played with a number of coaches. Some have been tactically amazing. They can watch a game, and then when you play that side next week, they can organise our tactics perfectly to annul the threat that they possess.
The ability to motivate players through clarity of communication with individuals and their supporters is also an essential quality of a good coach.
I think people skills plays a crucial part. You can study video all day, you can be able to tell someone how to be a perfect hockey player, but if you can't understand the players you're coaching and can't interact with them successfully, then I don't think they'll ever make a very good coach, personally.
Of course, innovative leadership and experience in the game is paramount.
First and foremost, you've got to build a bit of rapport with the player. So unless they believe that you've got something worth listening to, they ain't going to listen. So you might have all the answers, but if they're not listening, you're wasting your time. So for me, I try and build a relationship with the individual player, build some rapport, build some trust, and it helps because I've been there and done it in rugby. But if you're coaching in an area that you're not known in, it's important to show you've got credibility, and then I'd also argue a huge dose of humility as well.
So in summary, there are a number of key characteristics associated with being a good coach. They include the ability to motivate, good clarity of communication and vision for the team or individual. Tactical and strategic awareness are vital, as well as knowledge of technical excellence. Finally, an ability to lead is important, particularly when dealing with a team. Experience of the sport that you are coaching also gives valuable insight into how to perform your roles successfully. In this chapter, we look at what is required for a training session to be effective and what responsibilities a coach has to master in order to achieve this. Individual sessions should have clear and achievable objectives. These will provide the focal points for the sessions. As a coach, it's a good idea to discuss with the individual or team what you are trying to achieve in the session and how you are planning to do this. It helps clarify what they are going to be doing and why they are doing it. You should also outline time constraints and levels of intensity.
I think, again, that sort of communication between the technical staff and the physical staff, we can let the technical staff know what physical boxes they're getting in their session. And anything essentially that they're then not missing out, we can do an individual needs analysis with a player. There might be a player who has a specific technical request, he needs to be quick. We can then do some additional speed work with them. It might be cardiovascular work with other players. So they all get their physical work done, they all get their technical work done, but it's specific to the demands of their game. So it's a football team, but each position will have their own demands, and therefore should have their own training sessions.
It's vital you understand the requirements of each individual being coached. Different people will have different areas of strength and weakness. Whilst it is vital that individual strengths are maintained, weaknesses need to be addressed and eliminated.
Well, an effective training session revolves around the participants, what their ability levels are, what their experience is, and also the level at which you pitch it. So organisation is a prime factor in it. setting some goals and some targets, which might be short-term, that might be linked into long-term, and to, again, effectively communicate the sort of things that you're looking for, and to test their understanding throughout the session, and indeed for future sessions, to keep continually testing their understanding.
As a coach, demands upon you will be high, and poor preparation could mean too much time wasted on trying to organise the session instead of actually coaching. 3 simple steps to remember when planning a session are: to set the framework from which you are operating, to decide on the objectives and content of the session, and to evaluate it afterwards. 2 areas that must be addressed in order to provide an effective training session are physiology and psychology. Each have a different set of requirements and differ between sports.
From my point of view as a sports scientist, an effective coaching session, again, we're trying to address the technical and also the physical aspects of football. So they could do a ball work session, but that's also a physical session. And again, there's different physiological things that we could do. So one of our key fitness training principles is specificity. So you do training, which is going to have an influence on the game that you're going to play. So there's a lot to be said for the best way to prepare for football is to play football. But there's other physiological components, speed, endurance, power, that we can take out of a football capacity and do those separately.
You can look at what they've achieved within the session and then look towards the next session so that they're psychologically ready for the next session. You can look towards goal setting in the light of what they've achieved in that particular session. And one of the things that you can use, which is particularly important either in learning a new skill or also in preparing for a competition situation, is the use of visual imagery. So it's a little bit, you need to train your gymnasts to be able to visualise certain aspects of the moves, and so they can go through them in their mind and rehearse them. Okay, and this helps them to learn the moves quicker, but also it can help them to cope with situations in competitions, so they can visualise the big arena, how they're going to feel when they come into that situation, and this would help them in preparing for a major competition.
I think that one of the important things I feel is that in life nothing's written, okay? Nothing's ever written or decided before it actually happens, so never be afraid to try. I think that's one of the key secrets to success. It's only by trying that you know what you're capable of.
An assessment of your performance as well as that of the people you are coaching is another way to improve. This can be done by a video analysis of each session and by implementing a coaching session plan, noting the areas that went well and those that did not. Additionally, you can get feedback from the team or individuals as well as from other coaches and use their constructive comment to design improvements for the next session.
I know during the process how well it's going, but I'll also ask for some critical evaluation from the other coaches, because you can always do things better as a team. And so I like to work in conjunction with, like, say, the games master, who can say, yeah, that was really useful, we need to do a bit more of that, and maybe that was a bit complicated. Maybe, the lads weren't quite understanding what you were saying. So, yeah, it's vital that in any learning cycle that you're humble and asking questions as much as giving advice.
There are a number of factors to consider when organising an effective training session. They should have clear and achievable objectives, and you should know the requirements of each individual that you are coaching. It is vital to properly plan a session and incorporate physiological and psychological requirements. Keep a log of your sessions and design them around a specific goal. Constantly assess their effectiveness and make adjustments if necessary. In this chapter, we focus on what makes an effective communicator and the different ways in which a coach can convey their message. These include the 4 main types of verbal communication: informing, whereby you seek to convey information; request, where you seek someone's assistance; influence, where your presentation and syntax, as well as what you say, communicates your message; and entertain, usually through a sense of humour. Having a good sense of humour can be a vital tool when coaching. It can diffuse tense situations and keep morale high. Judge carefully when a sense of humour is required and when a more business-like approach would be appropriate. Influence as a communication method is more about how you say something than what you say. Body language is important. Research suggests over 70% of all our communication is expressed this way. Basic techniques include adopting a neutral posture, then watching your recipients for reactions, dressing appropriately, and being positive in your approach. These may seem like small considerations, but they can have a big impact on your sessions.
Well, it's vital that you find the wavelength or the medium to communicate. That can come in all sorts of forms. Sometimes it can be verbal, sometimes it can be visual, sometimes it's kinesthetic. I think the important thing is that all children, all people learn in different ways. Effective communication, which is the important thing. It's understanding what makes a certain player or group of players learn effectively.
As a coach, you should be positive and knowledgeable about what is being demonstrated.
What makes a good coach is someone that can interact with their players and help them develop to become a good cricket player. They need to be able to motivate and coach their players to their specific needs and look to get the best out of them at all times.
An effective communicator has a number of key skills. They understand verbal communication types and know where and when to use them. They know how to communicate through demonstration, plans and video. They know how to communicate with groups and with individuals, and can set practices in action to bring about the acquisition and development of skills. Finally, they know how and what to communicate before, during and after a competition. Assessing strengths and weaknesses in a training session and adapting the session accordingly is critical when trying to bring the best out in any performer. It is vital for you to plan your sessions ahead of time. This allows you to observe the sessions rather than trying to organise them on the day. A key advantage of this is that it allows you to watch each member of the group giving greater attention and focus to detail. You are then able to identify areas of strength and areas of weakness in the performer's approach or execution. This requires a comprehensive knowledge of the technique you are asking the respondent to practice in order to accurately identify where the issues are.
So for me, the first place as a sports scientist, to start looking at strengths and weaknesses is actually out on the pitch and to just watch and observe. And we talk about qualitative assessment. So qualitatively, I'd like to think I can watch a player, identify the needs of their game, so should they be quick, but then also to assess just visually for starters, whether they are lacking in speed, or it might be speed or agility, two very different components. It might be physical fitness, it might be aerobic, it might be power, it might be jumping capacity.
Another way to identify strengths and weaknesses is through the use of video technology. It can be useful to tape your sessions and review them at a later date. The importance of good technique cannot be understated. It can help prevent injury and promotes high performance. If faced with having to implement corrective measures, the best way is to promote the best practice technique. Each sport will have different techniques for best practice that are specific to the skill set required for that sport. This should provide the basis for every session when teaching skills or techniques. This gives the athlete an ideal model to aspire to and helps them recognise erroneous elements of their performance. In order to continue an athlete's progression, the training regime should be designed to improve upon existing skills and techniques and implement new ones.
For me personally, there's no point in testing unless you're going to do something with it. And quite often we fitness test players, we get the results, and then we don't actually do anything with the data. So the reason for testing is to identify strengths and weaknesses and then to deliver individualised programs for those players to develop.
Every coach is quite different really, and it really depends on how you and your coach work together. But you do have targets. For me, the whole point of the session was to get out the best I could give for that session. So my coach never actually said, okay Phyllis, I want you to do this at 3:30 pace, and I want you to try and stick to this time. You went out there to try and do your best and try and maintain that through the whole of the session and finish that session knowing you've got nothing left to give. Now, the way that you do set targets is perhaps in your race situation, where you're building, you have maybe, take a short season, so perhaps if we're relating this to school studies, from September through to your Christmas time, you might have 3 major races, and it's your job and your coach's job to make sure you peak for those races, and you're going to get goals, and it's your coach's job to monitor your training session.
When assessing your own performance as a coach, it's a good idea to do a review of each session. In summary, when assessing strengths and weaknesses, it is advantageous to plan your sessions in advance. This allows you to observe and not just organise. Video technology is also a useful tool. It's important to recognise incorrect technique and implement best practice. Also, always look to progress your regime. This may mean learning new coaching techniques to complement current ones. Recognise different abilities in a group and adjust your sessions accordingly. Finally, assess your own performance by planning and reviewing each session. High on any coach's agenda will be the provision of safe practice and risk assessment and, for the under-16s, adherence to child protection legislation and the importance of CRB checks. A risk assessment is a systematic process for recognising potential hazards, evaluating the risk they pose, and outlining how you are going to address those problems. To begin with, you must first recognise what the potential hazards are. They can range across a broad variety of things. For example, these might be an individual's needs, such as a medical condition, disability, or existing injury. Or the environment may be dangerous, such as slippery surfaces or inclement weather. You may be using dangerous equipment, for example during field hockey. Or there may be requirements of the sport that demand correct technique, such as a gymnastics somersault. Once these have been identified, you must outline the measures you are going to put in place in order to best control the situation. When organising a coaching session for a football game, for example, there are a number of issues that could cause risk. The state of the pitch may be poor, or there may be foreign objects, such as litter, on the surface. To control this, you could inspect the pitch on a regular basis and immediately beforehand. When coaching children, there are strict guidelines and legislation in order to ensure their protection. In the UK, there is the Child Protection in Sport Unit, set up by the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children and the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. Your chosen sports governing body will also have a safeguarding policy and will be able to give you detailed advice. The guidelines state that physical contact between an adult and child should only take place when developing sports skills or techniques, treating an injury, preventing an injury, or meeting the requirements of the sport.
Supporting is very important within gymnastics, especially from a technical aspect. It allows the gymnast to get a feel for the move whilst gaining support from their coach, which is important in the safety, especially when learning something new. Supporting around the centre of mass is really important because you can allow you to keep hold of the gymnast from the beginning of the move right through to the end. And from a safety point of view as well, and with current child protection, supporting is important, and that you know how to do it properly so that you're keeping in with those guidelines.
The CRB, or Criminal Records Bureau, keep information pertaining to a person's criminal record. They can disclose this on request in order for an organisation to ascertain if someone is suitable for a particular role.
In a school environment, working with young children, we need to make sure, as our number one priority, that those children are safe in any lesson, sports coaching session, any match situation at all. The main thing that we need to do is to make sure that the adults that they're working with are assessed and checked against police records using a CRB check.
From 2009, any adult in the UK will be subject to a CRB check if they wish to coach children or vulnerable adults. The key processes to ensure safe practice and child protection are how to perform and understand a risk assessment and to understand the legislation pertaining to child protection. You should be aware that a CRB check is now mandatory for adults wishing to coach children or vulnerable adults in the United Kingdom. Becoming a coach can be one of the most rewarding aspects of participating in any sport at any level. Coaching does place serious demands on an individual in terms of responsibility, knowledge and stamina, but it's always important to remember the main reason for undertaking the job. It's fun.
Last week I was coaching down at a prep school in the southwest, and that was all about having fun.
Because it's fun, you meet loads of new people.
Enjoying it and having fun is the most important part, I would say, at any standard, yeah.
The work that I do now is around young people, trying to motivate and inspire the next generation to believe in themselves and to go out there and achieve their dreams.